Hey, it's Kristen Engelking, and this is going to be my information on differentiated instruction. A little bit of back information. I, I kind of took a different approach of how to apply um, a lot of the information about differentiated instruction into your classroom. I know we have all sat through so many of the in-services telling us what it is and why we need to differentiate our instruction, who to reach. And I always felt like walking away from those presentations, those in-services, that I felt like I understood what they were saying, but lacked in something to take away, to be able to apply what was being presented. So that's the approach I'm taking: how to evaluate materials, what to look for, how to make your instruction fit your students. Um, First, just a little bit of a review: why we need to differentiate our instruction. So why we need to create levels to reach our students, not just our ELL students, but our gifted students, our special needs students, how we get from the high, the low, and everyone in between. And that need for that instruction, um, it came out of some legislation that was passed from court cases: Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, um, Meyer versus Nebraska, Lau versus Nichols, all basically boiling down to our students of different ethnic backgrounds. They need to receive that quality education, regardless of where they come from, who their parents are, the color of their skin. We have to do our best as educators to provide that quality education. And having a student simply sit in a chair at the back of the classroom receiving the same instruction as everyone else does not qualify as that quality instruction. Um, One of the major things that is mentioned time and time again about what educators can do, most specifically for ELL students, and there is a big focus on our ELL students, but don't forget that these same strategies are fabulous to use with your students who may be, a slower learner or have special learning disabilities. Um, this will help them as well, even though there is a focus on our ELL students. Scaffold your instruction. Use their language proficiency levels. Look at those CELPA scores. Take that into consideration and start building on what they already know at the level that they can in our language be able to perform at. And then adapt your materials. So when you're right at the beginning of setting up your lessons and figuring out what you want to do, keep in mind when you are selecting your materials, we're preparing that we all know, but keeping in mind some of this information on here, take into consideration those language abilities. Make sure that the material you're using is relatable, that it's appropriately related to the culture of the students. Make sure that you're pacing your materials at an appropriate level. Um, these are all very much things that we are aware of, but make your transition smooth. Don't give up. If the first set of materials that you pick you don't find success with, don't give up. Keep trying, because you're going to find that one item, that one book, one activity that really reaches out. When you are evaluating students' work, be consistent. A big piece of advice: be consistent. Don't just give them a little bit of leeway one day and then grade a little stiffer another. One of the most important pieces that I found was learn about your students' culture and heritage. It is absolutely important. It makes them feel valued, but then you are less likely to say something offensive, provide materials that are inaccurate. We don't want to offend the students or their families, and it's absolutely important that they understand that we are cognizant of their heritage, of their culture, and that we are making our best efforts, to get to know them and to be respectful. When you are adapting your materials, develop your own supplemental materials. Not every textbook, has the modifications for ELL students. Not every textbook has an opportunity to help you, guide you. So instead of taking something from a box set, make it yourself. Reach those students at their level, with their abilities, their language proficiency. You're going to be more successful that way. If you have an assignment, record the audio. With technology, the way it is at this point, we have so many options and ways to reach our students. Easy to do podcasts. Record those directions. Make it available for students. Allow for alternative responses. So some of our kids may be at a language proficiency level that doesn't allow them to verbally respond to questioning. Take that into consideration. Rewrite sections of a text to condense it and to lower the language demand so that you're meeting the proficiency levels of the students. And we're going to talk a little bit more about rewriting text, some guidelines for that in just a minute. Teach text features. Reading teachers are going to love you for this, to provide any support, especially when you get into like the secondary schools. They will love you for any assistance that you can provide. Text features help the students, though, to know what to look for. Teaching them about bolded, highlighted, italicized words, headings, whatever you can do to help with text features to get students to be able to understand, decode what is written. Use graphic organizers in your pre-instruction. Reduce the amount of reading. So for our ELO students, have them read a passage that gets right to the nitty-gritty instead of reading all of the extra around it, because they're going to have a hard time. Because if it's above their language level anyway, they're going to need some extra time. And maybe reduce the number of problems in a set. Have them show their mastery and their learning, their understanding by picking out some essential questions. They may not need to have to show you in 12 problems what they can show you in 5. Substitute tasks, so find an alternative that would be more appropriate for their language proficiency, and develop study guides. There are a lot of IEPs out there for our special needs students that have that accommodation as a requirement anyway. And all of our students benefit from that, being able to narrow down what they've learned. Back to that rewriting text to help condense and to lower the language demand. Here are some of the guidelines that I have found. Limit what the passage is to the topic sentence and some supporting details. Make your sentences shorter, and the number of sentences in a paragraph also fewer. Make sure that you are using clear definitions. Use simple verb tenses. Use the imperative form. Use active, not passive voice. Use sequencing, transition, and prioritizing terms only when the student is ready. So once they've started to master the language and their language proficiency level is increasing, then start teaching them the words of first, second, those types of things. Once they are there, once they're ready to master these. Preparing to teach the curriculum. Attempt thematic units. Now you're getting that reinforcing the concepts in other classes, showing some consistency, that everybody is in it to help them. Writing objectives. Be sure the students understand what it is that they are going to be learning from your units. Use pictures, realia. Make sure that your text, again, matches their proficiency levels. And identify key terms. Essential vocabulary. Identify what vocabulary words a student needs to learn to understand the concepts. Now when you get to teaching the meat of it, write your objectives on the board. This is a big push to have written in student-friendly language what the student can expect to learn from the lesson. Not what they're going to do. Please do not mistake that with your agenda. Do not say the students will write sentences. No, tell them what they are going to learn from the lesson, the concepts that they are going to be mastering. Then write out your procedures on what they're going to do to complete the tasks. Having it written in front of the student All students benefit from this. They don't have to try to remember what you said. It's right there in front of them. You'll have more success, absolutely, in completing the assignments as you were hoping for. Use visuals. Have students demonstrate understanding. Ask one question at a time. Don't berate students with question after question. Give plenty of wait time. Use as many demonstrations as you possibly can, and make sure you're incorporating videos or recordings. And then here's the textbook, the resource book that I use to find a lot of this information that I found to be particularly helpful.